So we began our walk with Jesus through Lent this year, way back on February 14th, when we Christians of the West gathered to receive ashes on our forehead on Ash Wednesday, and were reminded that from dust we have come and to dust we shall return. You might remember and realize that Ash Wednesday fell on Valentine's Day this year, in this odd convergence of ashes and hearts. But it really was appropriate in many ways for the journey from Ash Wednesday to some 40 days later finding ourselves walking to the foot of the cross on Good Friday, and here to Easter morning. Because that walk with Jesus is a journey of the heart, which means not so much hallmark cards, sweet-tarts, chocolate, and roses, but a journey deeper and more harrowing than that in many ways. Love in this world involves ashes and dust, dragging feet and broken hearts, as much as sunny spring days of whistling, skipping down the lane, and holding hands. The poet Jan Richardson, in Only the Way She Can, reminds us of this when she posted on Ash Wednesday, Valentine's Day, this poem, which she entitled Blessing for the Brokenhearted, from her book, The Cure for Sorrow, a book of blessings for times of grief. And she writes this: "Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but it will save us nonetheless. The heart of Easter is the still beating heart of Jesus, that after all that was done to him, all the rejection from his religious leaders, the fickle adoration and condemnation madness of the crowds, the denial and betrayal of his friends, and finally his execution at the hands of the state, after all of that, not only did his heart start beating again, after it had been broken and stopped, but it continued to beat with love, demonstrating for all the world and all of history to see that the only cure for love, the sole remedy for its breaking, is to love still. The heart of Easter is the radical, scandalous revelation within God, God's self, is the broken and still beating heart. Within God, God's self is the broken and still beating heart. It's not even now how we are used to thinking of great power, much less the greatest power of all. And yet this is what Good Friday and Easter Sunday and Easter requires of us. This is the revelation. So the writer Ronald Rolheiser, he explains it in this way: the power of God in this world is never a power of muscle, speed, brilliance, physical attractiveness, or compelling presence, all of which leave no choice but to bend your knee in obeisance. The world's power works in that way, but God's power is different. So the Greek word that they use for power in the New Testament is, and associates with God, is the word exousia. Exousia. And it doesn't have a direct translation in English, but so you've got to get this image. Here's an image for you to give you a sense of what exousia, the power of God, is like. I mean, what that Greek word means. So again, from Rolheiser, he says, if you were to put the strongest man in the world into a room with a newborn baby and ask which of these two would be more powerful, you might at first glance say that the man is more powerful, obviously. But the baby possesses a different kind of power, and it's a far deeper one that can move things muscle cannot ever move. A baby has exousia. Its vulnerability is a greater power. It doesn't need to outmuscle anyone. A baby invites and beckons, and all that's moral and deep in our conscience cannot walk away. It's no accident that God chose to be incarnated into this world as baby. The heart of Easter reveals God's power as exousia, the babe born to Bethlehem, who grew up to heal the sick, who taught love and care for the least of these, who was in his lifetime before his death and resurrection, a great enough power to threaten the Roman Empire, whose military crushed enemies, whose economy run roughshod over laborers and the poor, whose religion bowed to violent, dominating gods, whose politics lifted men up as gods and saviors, and it was their power that felt threatened by this poor Galilean healer and teacher. And they were right to have felt that threat from him, as history would prove. But as a result of this greater exousia, God's power of love in this world, God's power at Easter did not come to rescue the oppressed Jews from Roman rule at that time. It did not wreak vengeance upon all those wrongdoers who went against God's kingdom. But as only love can do, there began the slow work of redemption in and through human hearts, the gradual coming together of what was torn asunder. Judas wanted to mete vengeance out to the Romans. Peter wanted to protect Jesus from the Jewish authorities. James and John wanted to sit at the right hand of Jesus. But none of that had anything to do with the work of heaven, the work of Jesus, which was, and through his Spirit still is today, about redeeming the human heart. The heart of Easter is about the healing power of love that is the greatest power in the world. And insofar as we seek to be an Easter people walking in the way of Christ, we must believe in this power, bet our lives on it, that it's the truest and deepest of all things, especially when we are tempted towards responses of violence or domination or retaliation or silencing or devaluing or separating from whomever, whenever, especially when we are called, especially then, we are called back to the heart of Easter and to remembering that the promised future is a world reborn and made new by love, and is okay in the end. Okay, because God holds that world. One more image to leave you with. A sociologist of religion named Peter Berger lays out this scene to help us understand what Jesus offers in his loving sacrifice and through his risen Spirit. Consider this most ordinary gesture by which a mother reassures her anxious child. A child wakes up at night, perhaps from a bad dream, and finds himself surrounded by darkness, alone, beset by nameless threats. At such a moment, the contours of trusted reality are blurred and invisible. In the terror of incipient chaos, the child cries out for his mother. It is hardly an exaggeration to say that at this moment, the mother is being invoked as a high priestess of the protective order. It is she, and in many cases, she alone, who has the power to banish the chaos and to restore the benign shape of the world. And of course, any good mother will do just that. She will take the child and cradle him in the timeless gesture of the Magna Mater, who became our Madonna. She will turn on a lamp, perhaps, which will encircle the scene with a warm glow of reassuring light. She will speak or sing to the child, and the content of this communication will invariably be the same. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Everything is in order. Everything is all right. That's what Jesus said to his disciples when he returned at the resurrection. Do not be afraid. The one held on Mary's lap in the manger on that holy night becomes the one within whose love all the world is held and redeemed. So in the jangled nerves of this day we find ourselves, in this era with the threat of chaos all around us from whatever, from global warming or the plight of refugees, from poverty and violence, from the wars started by madmen that create such suffering, the politics of threat and grandiosity. Let us not be afraid to lead with the heart, as Jesus did. Remembering, claiming, leaning into the truth that nothing, not even death itself, has the power over the power of God's love, a love which will have the final say. I hope you feel on this Easter day and in this Easter season something of the reassuring power and presence of our Mother God, the redeeming Christ, and the sustaining Spirit, whose love is the source of all that is and the destination of all our journeys. Amen.